Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Jim Reads Too Slow. I'm Jim, and May is finally over. It went rather quickly, I have to say, and with it went Horror Mayhem, a month of reading horror stories created by the Bookish Bryants, primarily short horror fiction, 250 pages and less. And that's something I haven't done a lot of, but I figured I'll give it a shot. And for the most part, I enjoyed myself. So here is my week 4 wrap up. I didn't read a lot, but week 4 was set aside for folk horror. And I started the week by reading The Great God Pan by Arthur Machen. This is a story that was published in 1894, and it's in some ways a lot like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. You have a scientist, a Dr. Raymond, who has little thought to morality, and is conducting an experiment on a young girl named Mary. Now, he feels that he has every right to do whatever he wants with Mary because he has pulled her up from the gutter and taken care of her. So he does a little brain surgery on Mary. His intent is to open up her mind so she can see into the spirit realm or the spiritual dimension. This takes place at his home in the Welsh countryside. Of course, the wild places where the pagan gods hold sway, particularly the great god Pan himself. Now, Raymond's friend, Mr. Clark, is on hand to witness all of this. It turns out the operation on Mary is a success, and she does see the great god Pan, but she comes out of this ordeal insane and also pregnant. Okay, we jump ahead years later, and Mr. Clark is at his home. He's collecting information for a book that he's writing to prove the existence of the devil, as one does. And one of the stories that he is going over when we see him again is about a young girl named Helen Vaughan. Now, Helen Vaughan has been sent to a farm family to live, and they're given instructions basically to let her do whatever she wants. So she spends a lot of her time in the forest. Her and her little friends, generally, she creeps everybody out, all the parents in the neighborhood. And one young girl one day goes into the forest and disappears, never seen again. Okay, years later, a man named Villiers, by chance, runs into an old school friend one night in London after dinner. He questions his old friend, "Why do you look so ragged and unkempt?" And the friend tells him that he's lost everything because he has been thoroughly corrupted by his young wife, who turns out to be this same Helen Vaughan. So Villiers does some detective work, and then he goes and talks to Mr. Clark. They compare notes, and then Clark later tells him to just drop it, to stay clear of this Helen Vaughan if he knows what's good for him. But he doesn't. He trails Helen, and he learns that she and her satanic orgies are responsible for the deaths of several men around London and other parts. It's learned then that Helen is the daughter of this Mary from the beginning of the story. It's sort of a Rosemary's Baby kind of a scenario. And after that, Clark and Villiers get together. They go and see Helen, and they order her to kill herself, or else they will expose her. This is a classic horror story. It influenced the writing of Bram Stoker, creator of Dracula, H.P. Lovecraft. Everybody here knows who he is, among others. The story has its share of gothic creepiness. I was a little horrified I don't think I'm the only one who read this story this month either. So if you did, also let me know what you thought of it. I sort of enjoyed reading it. And I really have enjoyed reading these older, sort of foundational horror stories, the ones that influenced others. So I thought that this was a good way to end Horror Mayhem. But I finished this one a few days, with a few days left in the month. So on a recommendation / dare, I read this guy here, Tender is the Flesh. Actually finished up the month with this one. It is a horror novel. Make no mistake about that. Though I don't think I could honestly squeeze it into the folk horror genre, unless Cannibals is folk horror. It's definitely a dystopian horror story. So what happens if a virus renders all animals, particularly food animals, deadly to humans? It doesn't take long before people craving meat turn their attention toward people on the fringes of society. And those people start to disappear. Cannibalism. Then the government gets involved. They see there's no turning back. People have to have their meat. And they begin to regulate all the cannibalism. And just like that, new industries are born. They're industries built on the old livestock and meatpacking industries, but they're a lot more tightly regulated and more closely supervised. A whole new set of terms has to be developed for use in these new industries and in the businesses that accompany them. One of the first things to go is the word cannibalism. People in charge just can't acknowledge that we're eating human beings. And along with that, no more humans or human beings with reference to food either. They become special meat, or head, as in head of cattle. And that also means that there's a whole set of clear, common sense terms and words that become forbidden, illegal to use, because it cannot be openly acknowledged, even though everybody knows that we're eating people. This is the world in which Agustina Bazterrica's novel, Tender is the Flesh, takes place. This novel follows Marcos, who is, his family has been in the meat industry for years and years, a long time. And since all of that collapsed, he has become an official at a slaughterhouse that handles special meat. Now, when the book starts, Marcos' life is not in a very good place. He and his wife have lost their young son, who one night just died in his sleep. His wife is so shaken by this. They worked so hard to conceive, and when they finally did, this happens. She can't be in the house anymore, so she goes to live with her mother. Marcos's father is in a nursing home, suffering from dementia, and Marcos needs his job in order to pay for his father's care. Marcos also appears to be having second thoughts about how he's making a living and about the people that he has to deal with in his day-to-day work life. Things just seem to be getting to him. And I found myself rooting for him, hoping that he made the right decisions, hoping that he, got his life straightened out. With all this going on, an owner of one of the companies that supplies Marcos' company with people to slaughter sends him a young woman. Okay, now in this world, this girl is livestock, nothing more. She's meat. or under the proper guidelines and with the proper paperwork, he could have her inseminated and maybe start a little backyard herd if he wanted to. It's crystal clear, though, that any other use is forbidden. It's highly illegal. No hanky-panky, no slavery, none of that. If caught, the human livestock and the offender will both end up at the slaughterhouse. So, does she become the entree at Marco's next barbecue? Does anything work out for Marcos, sorry. Is there anyone in this book, once you finally put it down, who is even remotely likable or sympathetic? I'll let you answer that question for yourself. If you've read this book, let me know what you thought. Bazterrica is an Argentine novelist. Her book was translated into English by Sarah Moses. I hesitate to recommend it because it absolutely horrified me, and in places it is disgusting. But it is well written, and it moved right along. I do see this book, though, as something of an allegory for the way we treat one another under our current economic system. And I think that's intentional. I think the writer, she wrote it like that, with that intention. So there is something a little deeper going on here. I read it fairly quickly, though, but I had to put it down a lot because it's a lot to take in places. So, okay, there it is. That's I read horror stories for an entire month. I'm glad I read most of them that I did. I wasn't shaken up too much, but I'm going to give the horror a break for a while. And in June, I'm going to be reading Westerns. I'll read some William Faulkner, and I'll continue reading Gene Wolfe's The Book of the New Sun. And I'll let you know how that goes. So until next time, so long, BookTube.